The one who was declared a curse at birth proves himself worthy of becoming a king. In a remote part of the Savannah desert, a grand tribe of apes joyfully celebrates the arrival of their new prince, King Simeon, eagerly awaiting to meet his son and receiving blessings from his ape subjects. When Vladimir, his loyal advisor, eventually arrives with news about the child. Unfortunately, he bears troublesome characteristics. Simeon heads to the chambers of his queen and is taken aback. Instead of just one child, the queen has given birth to twins. The firstborn appears frail and delicate, but he's the one rightfully in line for the throne. Meanwhile, the second child is robust and healthy. Due to this oddity, a sorceress intervenes and urges Simeon to rid himself of the firstborn. She insists that the child is nature's mistake and his tribe will never accept him. Influenced by the sorceress, Simeon takes advantage of the sleeping queen and orders Vladimir to dispose of the supposedly flawed infant. When the queen awakens, she inquires about her children. She feels unwell, and in her final moments, she begs her husband to care for both of them. Simeon introduces his younger son to the tribe, declaring him the crown prince and naming him Vanya. Meanwhile, following the king's orders, Vladimir sneaks to the wolf's den to feed the other baby named Edward to the wolves, but the poor infant clings to his fingers and refuses to let go. The ape hesitates about the unusual child but remembers his allegiance to the king and decides to proceed. In his next attempt, he successfully gives away the child into the wolf's grasp. During the fall, the infant becomes entangled in a vine but ultimately breaks free. Nevertheless, the wolf continues its pursuit, biting the baby's right hand. Fortunately, a proboscis ape comes to his rescue, releasing him from the wolf's grasp. The primate manages to teach the child to walk, but the little ape's right arm remains immobile. As a result, Edward rides on the back of his new friend, Ian, and the two traverse life's journey together until Edward reaches adulthood. Generally, the two get along famously, except when Ian consumes Edward's fruit. Edward had stashed a collection of figs hidden in a hole beneath leaves. Upon discovering that his figs have vanished, he confronts Ian, believing his friend may have taken the fruit. However, they soon realize a mouse absconded with the figs, prompting Edward to embark on a mission to reclaim the lost fruits. His physical limitations necessitate fresh strategies to achieve his goal. At that moment, he realizes he can use tree sap to set a trap for the rat. But before he can put his plan into action, Edward hears the sound of trumpets, signaling the start of the ball of games. Ian is hesitant to go, as they often face discrimination and rejection from other apes. However, Edward persuades him to give it another try, and they both find a spot in a tree to watch the show. The players swing from vines, passing the ball back and forth, aiming to launch it into a suspended skull, which is the game's goal. Vanya, the most skilled player, takes the first shot and hits the target to applause from the audience. As the second round begins, the ball is thrown toward Ian. Eager to join in, Ian reaches for the ball but unintentionally knocks down the other players, causing the ball to drop into a hole. This disruption annoys some of the primates, and they group up to confront Ian. Meanwhile, Edward seizes the chance to use the sap to retrieve the ball. The other apes gather around, intrigued by this new trick. In the midst of the confusion, the ball lands on King Simeon's head. As he attempts to remove it, Vladimir unintentionally pulls out a tuft of the king's fur, leaving him bald. When questioned about this mishap, Vladimir shifts the blame to his cousin Sergei. That night, Vladimir is summoned to the witch's hideout, where he faces questioning about why the defective child is still alive. Vladimir insists that he followed the king's orders. After being threatened, the sorceress instructs Vladimir to find a solution to the issue. Unbeknownst to them, Vanya is eavesdropping, discovering that he has an older brother who was supposed to be eliminated. Fearing the loss of his claim to the throne, the prince vows to address this matter. The following morning, Edward observes Ian conversing with the birds. Ian is insistent about the existence of a place called White Mountain, while the ape dismisses it. Ian claims that the birds informed him about the mountain's reality. Their argument is interrupted by the arrival of Sergei and Marcel, who bear news of Edward's summons by the king. Before all the apes, the king accuses Edward of practicing magic, despite Edward's denial of practicing any form of magic. Instead, he demonstrates his abilities with a few tricks, crafting a crown from leaves and allowing Simeon to see his reflection in water on a leaf. Finally, he fashions a throne for the king. As Simeon takes his seat, the sorceress rushes into her lair and summons a swarm of insects to attack him. Amid the chaos, Simeon is toppled from his throne and plunges into an abyss. Desperately, he manages to cling to tree roots and ascends, but just as he nears the surface, the roots give way, causing him to fall and faint. The sorceress points the blame at Edward for the chaos and accuses him of awakening the tree spirit to eliminate the king. Vanya exploits the situation to rid himself of his brother, seizing Edward by the neck and hurling him into the forest. Ian attempts to rescue Edward but is blocked by other apes. When Simeon regains consciousness, he criticizes Vanya for his actions, but it's too late. When Edward regains consciousness after the fall, he spots Ian descending on a vine trying to rescue him. Sadly, the rope is too short, and the ape can't reach his friend's hand. Deciding to fend for himself, Edward heads into the heart of the forest. There, he encounters two enormous ostriches, and one of them holds a bunch of fruit in its beak. Edward stands upright, relying solely on his feet for support. To his surprise, he finds he can walk this way, and his previously injured arm won't hinder his movements. Suddenly, a pack of wolves appears, and they have to flee. Edward can only run backward, but he realizes that using just his 2 feet allows him to run faster. Observing the ostrich's gait, he learns to run forward, even outpacing them. Moments later, they enter a place where rhinos are grazing. The animals scatter as the apes watch from a tree. As they reach the end of the path, the rhinos curl up like armadillos. Edward is about to be crushed, but King Simeon steps in front of him, using his strength to prevent the rhinos from crushing the young ape. One of the rhinos escapes and rolls toward Edward. The king selflessly shields him once again. When the danger subsides, the young ape rises and realizes that Simeon sacrificed himself to save him before he died. The king asks for forgiveness and reveals that Edward is also his son. At this moment, Vanya arrives and takes his father's body home. Edward remains alone in the forest, haunted by Simeon's words. That night, the apes conduct a farewell ritual for their late king, and Vanya is prepared to be crowned as the new leader. Even before officially becoming the group's leader, Vanya dismisses Vladimir, finding him guilty of failing to eliminate his brother when he was just a baby. Sergei steps into his cousin's role and introduces potential suitors for Vanya. However, after assessing them, he decides to establish a new rule. From that day onward, all apes must be at his complete disposal. To complete the ritual, Vanya is expected to consume his father's flesh. But before he takes the first bite, he is interrupted by Edward, who is determined to break with this gruesome tradition. To safeguard his father from being devoured, they take advantage of the apes fleeing due to a thunderstorm. With Ian's assistance, they hide Simeon's body in the forest. Edward arranges small stones to create a makeshift tomb, and Ian places a large rock over King Simeon's remains, concealing them entirely. During this moment, lightning strikes a bush, and Edward discovers his newfound ability to control fire. He holds a stick with a flame until it begins to rain and extinguish the fire. The storm intensifies, and a tornado approaches the tree. The primates attempt to take cover, but Vladimir is rejected by everyone. Upon entering the witch's chamber, the ape and Edward are drawn into the eye of the storm. Amid this natural catastrophe, the ape spots numerous animals, including a primate recently separated from her family, struggling to survive. Edward attempts to reach her but is tossed aside. The female is also swept away, and when the ape tries to assist her once more, they are both caught in the vortex. However, this time, Edward is prepared. He has tied himself to the trunk of a tree and successfully avoids being carried away by the tornado. With both apes on the vine, it snaps and they tumble down the precipice. Edward clutches the female ape and uses his legs to scramble back up. As the storm subsides and the primate awakens, she slaps Edward at first, but then bursts into tears, seeing her family tree destroyed. When Ian emerges, the ape decides to flee, and Edward leaves his friend to follow her. He pursues her through the valley, overcoming various challenges. Hours later, they finally meet, and the primate introduces herself as Lucy. Watching Edward walking on both legs, she decides to learn to do the same with his help. Lucy soon learns to stand, and they admire the view from the mountain. The ape mentions that his family resides in the tree they see and invites Lucy to meet them there. On their way back, they encounter a lava lake, and Edward takes a fiery stick to light their path. As they approach the tree, curious apes want to know how he tamed fire. The young ape highlights the forest's beauty and dismisses any fear of it. Vanya then appears, ordering Edward to put out the torch to demonstrate the friendly nature of fire. Edward ignites multiple sticks, but accidentally sets a bush on fire. The sorceress arrives, blaming Edward for all the curses in the kingdom. Backed by the apes, she expels the couple with no place to go. They decide to enter the wolf's den, using fire to ward off the animal. Frightened, the wolf flees, and the young apes establish a safe camp. Lucy instructs Edward to extinguish the torch, and he erects a stone fence to prevent the fire from spreading. That night, they shared their first kiss. Until then, primates never kissed, but realizing the pleasure in it, they continue despite its lack of utility. Observing the couple, the apes also embrace this practice, leading the witch to invoke the tree spirit for rebuke. In the following days, Lucy teaches Edward to procure his food, including fruits and other animals. Together, they learn to create fire and even manage to tame the wolf. As they cook, the apes revel in the scent, prompting the tree spirit's manifestation to terrify them. Diego investigates the source of the sound and discovers that the tree spirit is a mere myth used to control the people. Unmasked, the sorceress seeks to eliminate him, but Diego escapes and exposes the truth to everyone. Outraged, the apes decide to abandon the tree and chart their own paths. Everyone departs, except Gisela, who believes her place is alongside Vanya. As it's still night and the displaced folks have nowhere to go, they seek Edward's aid. However, Lucy harbors resentment toward these individuals and demands they leave. After consulting his tribe, Edward agrees to provide them with a meal for the night, with their departure expected the following morning. Reluctantly, Lucy consents to this arrangement. Gathered in the cave, they sing and decide to have a party. For weeks, Vanya and Gisela witness the construction of a new village but feel abandoned by their people. In her concealment, the sorceress plots her revenge. Months later, Lucy and Edward marry and are on the cusp of having a baby. While his wife rests, Edward aids the villagers in constructing and expanding their village. By now, they have all mastered walking on two legs and hunting for their food. Diego discovers coal and demonstrates to Edward how to mark the walls. Although Edward initially sees no use in this, he takes pride in the young one's discovery. Observing the village's growth, new primates appear seeking shelter and food, but Sergei and Marcel cast them away. At that moment, Edward attempts to persuade his peers to assist these needy individuals, but Sergei intimidates him, leading to an argument. Meanwhile, a horde of locusts summoned by the sorceress approaches the village and lays it to waste. After the attack, the apes rally to confront the sorceress. Lucy urges Edward to assist his brother, and he hurries towards the tree. Vanya is about to be dethroned, and Edward needs to act. In the ensuing fracas, the tree is struck by axes, causing sap to flow. Furious at the impending loss of his ancestral tree, Vanya fights to defend it. Edward tries to mediate, but he is overcome. Sergei, a scheming ape, attempts to set Vanya on fire. Gisela intervenes to protect her husband. Amidst the turmoil, Vanya breaks free and fights his adversaries, while the wolf tries to wake Edward. He eventually manages to rescue Gisela from the flames, though he was trapped briefly. As they mourn their home's destruction, the brothers reconcile. Sergei predicted their doom, but Edward, gazing at the sky, remembers his friend's words of a magnificent world full of hope. Edward kindles this spark of hope within the group, guiding them through adversity towards the White Mountain. After many days of toil, they reach their promised land. There, the White Mountain stands, and Edward joyfully reunites with his friend Ian. Together, they celebrate their hard-earned victory. Loved this recap? Don't miss the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment which movie we should dive into next. Your pick could be our next spotlight, and turn on the notifications so you stay alerted of our next post.